She walked into the house trembling, and there it was, a locked room that no one had seen before. An envelope lay on the floor, addressed to my dad. Inside, the kind of revenge that made him drop to his knees, speechless. He thought money could buy loyalty. He was about to learn the hard way that some lessons come with a price you can't imagine. If you've ever wanted to see justice served with perfect precision, hit that subscribe button now. Like this video and leave a comment, because this isn't just a story about money or betrayal. It's about the kind of revenge that restores your faith in fairness. Let's dive in. It all began on a humid, tense afternoon. My dad had just stumbled out of a messy situation, one of those situations that feels like a train wreck you can't look away from. He'd racked up more debt than he could handle, not from investments or a business failing, but from indulgence, poor judgment, and, yes, a mistress he refused to let go of. My grandpa, a man of quiet dignity, had lived a life defined by patience, hard work, and a carefully cultivated sense of independence. He'd never been one to flaunt wealth, nor had he ever interfered in the personal disasters of his children until now. Dad's demands came without subtlety. He had stormed into Grandpa's home that morning, papers in hand, frustration dripping from every word. "Grandpa," he said, slamming a folder on the dining table so hard it rattled the crystal glasses, "I need you to cover $400,000, my debts, the house, and yes, her expenses. You owe me." Grandpa, a man in his 70s, looked up slowly from his armchair, his glasses perched on the bridge of his nose. He studied my dad like one might observe a fly trapped in amber, frantic, buzzing, desperate, and entirely unaware of its own foolishness. "400,000. Grandpa's voice was calm, even as a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Okay." And just like that, he vanished. Not immediately, not suspiciously, just gone. Weeks passed. Phone calls went unanswered. Emails bounced. And then the whispers began. Grandpa had flown to Florida. Dad, driven by panic and greed, decided to take matters into his own hands. He assumed Grandpa had hidden the money in some obscure account, some investment nobody knew about, and that if he pressured the house, he'd find it. So he went storming into Grandpa's house as though it were his own, convinced he had the right to take what he wanted. But the house had changed. It wasn't just dust and silence. There was a presence there, an unspoken authority. And then he found it. A locked room at the end of the hallway, one he had never noticed before. The door itself was unremarkable solid wood, with a simple brass knob, but something about it seemed almost deliberate. Dad's first instinct was to break it open, but as he reached for the knob, an envelope slid silently from beneath the door, landing at his feet with a soft, almost mocking thud. The handwriting was unmistakable. Grandpa's. Dad froze. The envelope was heavy, weighted with something he couldn't see. Curiosity, greed, and a flicker of fear battled across his face. Slowly, he tore it open. Inside were three things. First, a letter. Second, a stack of documents. Third, a single, unassuming key. The letter read simply, "If you are reading this, you've crossed a line I never expected. Your demands were outrageous. You wanted $400,000 for mistakes you made and choices you own. Consider this my lesson in responsibility." The documents listed every single financial move Dad had ever made, every credit line, every mispayment, every shady transaction. It was detailed, precise, and damning. Every bank account was frozen, every asset tied up in legal contingencies that Grandpa had quietly set up years ago. And the key? It opened a safe inside the locked room. Not a safe with cash, not a hidden stash of gold, but a ledger that tracked every immoral or deceitful action Dad had ever taken. And attached to it, carefully placed, was a wire transfer receipt for gone, not from Grandpa, but from Dad himself, redirected in a way that legally ensured it could never be recovered. Dad sank to his knees, staring at the documents, the letter, the key, his mind spinning. The room itself seemed to hum with quiet authority, every corner echoing the weight of a lesson he had underestimated. My grandpa hadn't needed to yell, threaten, or negotiate. He hadn't needed to chase, call, or confront. He had set up everything quietly, let time do its work, and allowed Dad's own impulses to lead him straight into the trap. The psychology behind it was brutal and beautiful. Grandpa knew Dad's arrogance, his need for control, his overestimation of himself. He knew the combination of greed and impatience would drive him to overreach. And overreach he did. What made the revenge so satisfying wasn't just the financial aspect. It was the perfect poetic justice, the kind that whispers, "You thought you could manipulate me, but I let you destroy yourself instead." Dad's face was a mixture of disbelief, fear, and rage. Every color seemed to drain from his cheeks as he realized the scope of Grandpa's foresight. The man he thought he could exploit had, in reality, orchestrated a scenario that ensured Dad's own actions were the instrument of his undoing. For the next few days, Dad tried to argue, to plead, to justify. But every attempt was met with cold, unshakable calm. Grandpa didn't need to say much. The documents, the letter, the evidence of meticulous planning, those were words enough. The safe, the locked room, the envelope, they were the final punctuation on a lifetime of wisdom. And me? Watching it all unfold, I felt a mixture of awe and relief. Awe for the sheer brilliance of the plan, and relief that real justice had been served without a single unnecessary cruelty. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about fairness. Grandpa returned a week later. Florida had been quiet, reflective. He had spent his time preparing, making sure every I was dotted, every T crossed. And when he walked back through the door, he didn't need to confront anyone. The results spoke louder than any argument ever could. Watching Dad squirm, I realized something crucial. There are times in life when people misjudge not only others' patience but also their intelligence. When you believe you can manipulate someone, underestimate their foresight, and ignore their principles, you leave yourself open to consequences that are far greater than any immediate punishment could deliver. And in that moment, Grandpa had shown the ultimate mastery of subtlety and strategy. It was not the money he took or the documents he revealed, it was the lesson, the demonstration of patience, intellect, and unassailable moral authority. Dad never touched that $400,000 again. He never tried to demand anything from Grandpa, and in a strange way, that silence became his punishment. Every time he looked at the locked room, at the envelope, at the ledger, he remembered that arrogance, greed, and entitlement are always measured. And sometimes the measurement is far harsher than you ever imagined. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud, and it isn't violent. It's precise, thoughtful, and inevitable. Grandpa didn't just teach Dad a lesson, he reminded all of us that intelligence, patience, and principle are more powerful than anger or greed. And in the end, justice, when carefully executed, is its own reward. If this story gave you chills or made you rethink what it means to truly be clever, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories where justice isn't just served, it's delivered in the most unforgettable ways. And comment below, what's the most perfectly executed revenge you've ever witnessed? I'd love to hear your stories.